Hello and welcome back to season 2 of HeadRightOut. I can't believe it. The date I'm recording this is the 14th of December 2021, but by the time this episode goes out to everybody, it will be almost Christmas. Where has that year gone? My name is Zoe Langley-Wathen, and if you're new here, I'd like to give you a big, huge, massive, warm welcome. And if you're a returning listener, then I thank you deeply for continuing to support me. So I am a writer, a speaker, an adventure seeker, midlife adventure seeker, and a teacher. And I have been saying that Head Right Out is all about encouraging you to step out of your comfort zone and do things that stretch you, scare you, and just make you feel a bit on edge because of the power and the benefit that that has to your well-being afterwards. That's why I encourage guests to share their own Head Right Out moments at the end of every episode. Well, today's guest is just the person to reiterate that message for us even more. If you didn't believe the power of adventure on well-being previously, I hope that after listening to Belinda Kirk today, you may feel differently, even inspired to head right out. Let's get into that conversation. Today, I am totally honoured to be having a conversation with Belinda Kirk. I have been looking forward to the possibility of Belinda coming and chatting with me for so long now, and she'll never believe this, but it's actually taken me a while to pluck up the courage to actually invite her to come and chat to me on the podcast. But Belinda is here today. She is an explorer and the leading campaigner promoting the benefits of adventure on well-being, just what we need. For the past 25 years, she has led dozens of international expeditions and remote filming trips. Belinda has walked through Nicaragua, sailed across the Atlantic, searched for camels in China's desert of death, discovered ancient rock paintings in Lesotho, and gained a Guinness World Record for rowing unsupported around Britain. She has led numerous youth development challenges, pioneered inclusive expeditions for people with disabilities, and managed scientific research missions in the Amazon, Sinai, and Alaska. Now, in 2009, Belinda established Explorers Connect, which is where I discovered her, a non-profit organisation connecting people to adventure. And she has encouraged 30,000 ordinary people to engage in outdoor challenges. In 2020, she launched the first conference to explore the positive impact that adventurous activity has on well-being. And we will talk about that a little later on. That was the Adventure Mind conference. So I know she's going to have so much amazing advice for us today. Belinda, welcome to Head Right Out.
Hello, and thank you for having me today, Zoe.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I have a bit of a croaky voice, but as long as you can hear me, it would be great to have you.
That's okay, no problem. I think you could probably make millions with a voice like that. You know, Barry White managed it, and various other singers.
As long as I don't start singing, you'll be all right.
Okay, fine. So, Belinda, oh my gosh, what a resume you have there. So you're the founder of Explorers Connect and author of an amazing book, which we're going to be talking about in a moment, and founder of the Adventure Mind Conference. We know so much about the benefits of being outside. I know myself through, my own outside medicine, but can you talk us through, what is the difference between being outside and adventure?
Yeah, and it's a good question, because I think we have this wonderful understanding now. It's become a little bit more, it has become mainstream, the idea that being in nature is good for us. There's a huge amount of data, and there's a really clear argument, and people instinctively, I think, know that it makes sense, but we also, in our strange world that we live in, modern world that we live in, we kind of want evidence to prove it, or theories, and we want to understand it in order to really value it enough. So the nature argument the nature effect, as it's called, is, I think, really, really hits a sort of strong point now. And people understand it and believe in it. And that's great. And even to the point where we're making an effort to spend more time in green spaces and so on, or get our kids or people who are ill or recovering into green spaces. But I think there's something extra to the nature effect, or maybe there's something that works hand in hand. And I call it the adventure effect. And I think that adventure, i.e. what you do in those green spaces, what you do when you go outside, it's not just about forest bathing and being in the outdoors, but also taking on natural, adventurous outdoor challenges. This can really benefit your well-being as well. And I've called it the adventure effect because I kind of wanted to give it its own equal footing, I suppose, alongside the nature effect, because I think it's an opportunity that we've been missing. And the adventure effect really is it's a multitude of benefits. I've seen people going on adventures my whole career, and I've been on adventures, and I myself have benefited from taking on challenges, from choosing challenge. And I've seen other people doing the same. And adventure is quite a difficult one to define sometimes, but I think challenge is one of the key elements of an adventure. But also choosing, not just challenge, but choosing uncertainty and choosing adversity as well, choosing to be uncomfortable. And when you make those choices, you go into a whole new world, I think, where you grow as a person, where you build resilience, where you learn to face fear, where you find out what you're capable of. And there's so much you can get from that. And so I think not just going out into nature, but also going outside and taking on natural challenges is just incredibly good for us.
Oh, do you know, there's so much there that is so powerful, and it's such a pull for me because I discovered that 10 years ago, the importance of not just going out for a walk, but going out for a walk and pushing myself beyond my comfort zone actually had such a positive impact on me. And that was where this all started, trying to get that message across. So everything you're saying there just absolutely is like ringing bells in my head going, yes, 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 yes.
I think we don't appreciate it, do we? We think of adventure as frivolous, I think. And that's what I've been speaking about for so many years, but that's why I eventually wrote the book. It's like, adventure's not frivolous. It is actually an innate part of us, our human experience. And so I kind of want to rebrand adventure for the importance that it is.
Yeah, it's so necessary. Okay, so what research then, if any, has been done into how it impacts the different ages or genders? Because I'm thinking here, and this actually came up for me when I was at the Adventure Mind conference as well. But, I'm really aware that there's this focus on perhaps, the troubled teenagers being taken off to experience their first adventure and to see how that impacts on them, and maybe even, get some prescription therapy for that. But how is that versus, say, the menopausal woman with no confidence or a lack of energy, maybe also has never experienced anything like that before? Is there any research about that, do you think? Have you discovered that?
About different ages?
Yes,
reacting differently. There is some research out there. So a lot of the research I've read specifically about women, it's interesting. I'll give you my take on it, but it's inconclusive, would be, to be fair. So a lot of the research that's been done where they've assessed men and women separately, so they've taken that into account. They found that the biggest impact on women has been on self-confidence. But it's also because the women in those studies have started with much lower self-confidence before the adventure. Now, I think that's because in our society, women have lower confidence. Actually, I think it's part of the way that modern society has evolved, I think. So I don't have the data to say women are less confident than men, because that also sounds it's a bit of a big, broad brushstroke. But the women I know and the personal experience I've had is that women we all suffer from different things, but women do tend to suffer from a lower confidence. And definitely in the studies I've read where they've measured men and women have gained more in self-confidence through and self-efficacy and things like that through doing adventures, because they've had a lower expectation of themselves at the start. And so that idea of finding out what you can do works better for somebody with low confidence. And so therefore, if it's true that you're a woman with low confidence, it's probably going to work even, it's going to have its, the power will be more impactful for you.
I see.
So I think there is that. I think the other thing I'd say is that we're all designed to adventure. It's in our DNA. So I think adventure works for everybody in a positive way on well-being. But I think at different times in our lives, I think it's particularly important to take on certain sorts of adventures. The book is full of loads of my own theories that I've based on 26 years of taking people on adventure and an awful lot of years of researching the psychology now. But I'm definitely not necessarily right on everything. But what I think is that small adventures are great and they keep us bolstered. They keep us going. But every now and then in our lives, we hit turning points where we have to reinvent ourselves. And I think the first key one is teenage years, when we become child to adult. And I think a big adventure at that time is absolutely fantastically helpful. But also, I think things like the breakdown of a marriage or relationship, divorce, or maybe a new relationship, or maybe having a child for the first time and becoming a parent, that's a huge upheaval in self-identity. But also menopause, like you mentioned, premenopause, menopause, that again could be a time where you have to reappraise who you are and what your role is in society, who you think you are, what you want in life, all of those big questions. And I think a big adventure is perfect at that time because you can reinvent yourself somewhere else, and then you can come back to your normal life, as it were, and be empowered to keep those changes, or you have that clarity. So yeah, I think it does work for everyone, but I think it works in different ways for different people at different times.
Oh, I agree. And actually, the menopause time, the perimenopause, menopause time, midlife women, which is obviously who this podcast is directed at and for, it's a time where there's so much going on. There could be divorce happening. There could be, care of elderly parents or loss of parents. That potentially at the same time, there's the loss of children maybe who have gone off to university. So, the whole empty nest thing. And it was actually at the Adventure Mind conference that the penny dropped for me that was who Head Right Out was for. And I forget which speaker it was that just triggered that for me, but it was such a powerful moment. And I just thought, oh my goodness me, this is who I need to be speaking to and delivering this content to, because I just felt, I guess I was in that moment myself as well, but I had been gearing so much towards younger people because I've been working in schools for so many years. And it hadn't even occurred to me that there was this period where we were transitioning through into this new life, new identity, and had new needs. But yeah, really, really important stuff.
And we're so invisible, as they say. That's what I've realised hitting mid-40s is that this whole idea of women, middle-aged women being kind of invisible, but also the realisation that middle-aged women actually hold the whole country together, not the world, the family, as well as jobs, as well as a lot of community, all the community groups that I've taken my son to, all the schools. I mean, goodness, middle-aged women are basically the backbone of Britain. And yet what we don't do is we don't shout about ourselves and we don't ask for help enough, I think. What I've noticed as well is writing the book and thinking about the cuts to, say, youth and youth clubs and so on. It made me realise that it's middle-aged women and sort of younger people who don't always shout and have a voice. And so therefore, when you look at all the cuts that happen, in public spending and so on, that's where all the cuts are. If you're not seen as because we are a productive part of the of the community, and so are young people. But if you're not seen as being a productive part, i.e. if you're not the biggest breadwinner at the time, or because you're taking time with your kids or whatever, if you're not making lots of money, if you're not the main breadwinner, then you're not sort of seen as important in our society. And I think that's got a big part of it. And it's also because we don't make enough of what we're doing. You know, women do so much, but we don't ask for the attention, I suppose.
Definitely.
It's a bit rambling. Figuring it out myself, because I'm kind of at that point. I'm going, God, why are things so unequal? And how should the world be better?
And how have we not known about this beforehand? You know, again, it's been so under discussed. And I mean, there are some more people out there now, you know, the likes of Joe Mosley and Siobhan Daniels, you know, really flying the flag for midlife plus women to age positively, which I think is great. But yeah, we just need more of it. Then, so we've mentioned the book a few times. So the book is Adventure Revolution. I have read it. I devoured it, absolutely inhaled it, and I will no doubt be reading it again. It's one of those books that I think it's not just a book to read start to finish and go, okay, that was great. I think it's a real dip in and out handbook as well that can kind of guide you through those key moments in your life. So when did you start writing? No, you're welcome. When did you start writing it? Or when did the idea blossom?
Oh, it's a good question. I think about 8 years ago, I decided I was going to write the book, or that I wanted to read the book otherwise. I started asking other people to write the book, bizarrely. So essentially, a good, 18 years ago, I recognised for myself that adventure is incredibly powerful for well-being, because it had been my therapy. Then the next step was that through taking a lot of other people on adventures, I realised that it's actually it didn't just work for me. It works for a lot of people. And so it made me think, wow, you know, adventure's really good for us. But it took me, I just wanted to go on adventures. I didn't really analyse it too much. Probably about 8 years ago, but I really wanted to start to understand it more. And so I started reading an awful lot of research from psychology, outdoor education, adventure education, learnt about positive psychology, tourism research, even about the well-being effects, and trying to find the why. Like, why is adventure so good? And also, what is adventure? It's such a hard thing to define sometimes. And why don't we appreciate it? And so I think it was 26 years of going on adventures and seeing it change people's lives. Then about 8-9 years of asking why and being curious and reading an awful lot. And then, 6 or 7 years ago, talking about it more and more publicly, because I thought, well, this message needs to be out there and somebody needs to write a book. I actually mentioned it to a few other people, going, oh, would you write a book like that? Because I really want to understand it. And I don't know why no one else did. I think because it was a mind melding. It was absolutely mind melding trying to get my head around it all.
I can imagine.
Because I did a biology degree, but many years ago. I'm a lapsed scientist, very much lapsed. So for me, it was about completely relearning learning again and learning a whole new, well, not just one discipline, several disciplines, really, trying to dip into lots of them. But I found it so interesting, the psychology of it. And I was just so curious to find out for myself that I just kept researching. And then once I had all this research and all these transformational stories that I was sharing via Explorers Connect, for quite a long time, I've tried to share stories where adventure has transformed people and helped people, because I think it's very inspiring to people.
Yeah.
And it helps people to get going. I then thought, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to mix science with all these transformational stories. That still, a lot of those stories make me cry just recounting them or thinking about them, because they're so beautiful and so powerful at times. So it took me a long time, but then, to be fair, I was so busy all the time. The terrible problem of modern life, always being too busy. I loved what I do, but I was so busy I could never find the time to write the book and actually sit and finish it. So the lockdown for me was that first lockdown, as terrible as the pandemic has been, and I'm very grateful to have been so lucky not to have suffered in the way that so many people have. You know, I'm very lucky not to have gotten seriously ill, or my family's not been seriously ill from it, touch wood. But for me, it was like, right, this is actually a chance for me to use this opportunity when everything else is cancelled. I can't do anything that I normally do. Okay, this is my chance to write the book. And I'm so grateful that I've had the chance to write it, because this is the message that of 26 years, my whole career, really, this is what I want to say. This is worth sharing to me. So I really hope people read it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. You did it. You got it out there. And I think I know the answer to this, but how has it been received?
Well, it's been good. It's been good. I've had some emails that have just been so wonderful, or even, oh goodness, it's helped people. And that's why I wrote it. It's impacted people and it's empowered people. And that is so exciting. That's why I wrote it. And do you know what happened very recently? I was speaking at the Kendal Mountain Festival, and a dad had driven all the way from Cheltenham to Kendal to see me speak so that he could come up to me afterwards. And he said, I drove here today to tell you that I've read your book. I've given it to my daughter. She's read the book. It's private, so I don't want to go into too many details. Yeah. But his daughter had been struggling, and they were now going on adventures, going up in the hills together. And he said, you've changed her life. You've changed somebody's life. You know, she's done the hard work, and, you know, all power to her. I hope she keeps working at it and keeps finding the joy. But, you know, the book gave her the door to open the adventure box up, and that has given her a pathway, hopefully, to some healing and to a better way. And we were hugging. I was in tears. It was just so beautiful. And I was like, thank you so much for telling me that, because that's why you write a book. You know, you have something you passionately believe in and you want to share it, and you hope that it'll help someone else. So
it makes that all justified, doesn't it? And it's just magical, absolutely magical. So is one adventure enough then to maintain that adventure effect, or do you think it needs to keep being maintained?
The way I'd put it, or the way I see it, is that you don't go to the gym once and think, or, you know, and or train for one marathon and get really fit and think you're going to be fit for life. Your physical health is like your mental health. You have to keep doing the right things, but I don't want it to sound onerous. It's going to the gym, for me, is utterly boring and I hate it.
I'm there with you on that. I'd rather be outside.
Gym owners. Yeah, that's so dull to do it at certain times, but I really don't enjoy it. But what I mean is, you get into routines that build you up, or you get into routines that take you down. And I think modern life does loads of, there's loads of traps, social media and all sorts of things like that, you can get into a pattern of doing things that actually break down your mental health. Or you can get into a pattern of doing things that build you up, like you do with physical health. You know, you have to keep doing them though, but make them fun, make them interesting and varied. For me, variety is everything. So I think, yes, you do have to keep doing adventures, but you don't have to go on a big expedition every year or something. For me, lots of small adventures are good, and also having a more adventurous attitude. It gives you a more adventurous attitude to everything, actually. But there are times in life for a big adventure as well, like a really big challenge as well.
It's funny because that's what I call microbravery. So I have my big adventures. They used to be every year. I can't do every year now because of family commitments. So I had to opt for something that was smaller. So microbravery is what keeps us pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone all the time. Just thinking more positively, I can do that. I can have a go at that, because I have a tendency to overthink things and think, oh no, I really can't do that. Or what will they think of me? Or all the worry walk type things come into my head and just take over. So yeah, having that option to think, no, I've got to be brave, but this is a small thing. But if I can go off and, walk however many hundreds of miles on my own, then I can jolly well do this. And yeah, I think it's just drawing on that main adventure more often, but in your everyday life, isn't it? It's just applying it to everyday life.
Yeah, I think, for me, the magic of adventure is not just the joy that you have. And sometimes it's not joyful, let's face it. Sometimes it can be a bit miserable in a way. But it's not just the excitement and the joy of the time. It's what you come back changed. You come back with extra pieces of you. and extra gifts, you know, either whether it be self-confidence or an appreciation of friends, family. I mean, it can be so many things, but it's what you come back with to the rest of your life. So, yeah, I think it can make you braver, and then you can take on more things or take things on in a very different way.
Love it. You know, when I was reading the book, I read it on my Kindle because I find that that's where I can make the most appropriate notes, and it's the most efficient way of making notes for me. And I hadn't realized how many notes I'd actually made and highlights I'd taken. So I think it's about 16 A4 pages worth of notes. I think that has to be a record, Belinda, seriously. But there was one thing that I highlighted. It actually links to what you've just said, and it was about how you said that adventure taught you to see opportunities where others might see threats. And it taught you to risk failure and follow your dreams instead of opting for the easy path. I really connected with that. I was thinking to myself, gosh, it just sounds so scary for a lot of people. It's far easier taking the easy route. But how have you dealt with facing some of your own fears? What's in your resilience toolkit?
I think several things. I think the big question is, when you come to something you want to do, but you're a bit scared of it, it's not just asking yourself what can go wrong and how could this be a terrible failure and how could I look foolish and all of the things that could go wrong, but thinking about how could it go right? If this goes well, wow, you know, I could have this experience or this door could open and actually what I found is that when you take on things, the benefits, if things go well, they don't always go well, but if they go well, the benefits can be beyond what you ever thought. And so I think not just thinking what could go wrong, but and the what ifs that way, but the what ifs it goes right. So I think a big part of when I fancy doing something, but I'm a bit worried about it, a bit scared of it, is, well, what could go right? And why do I want to do it? Well, that's what's going to keep motivating me. And if it goes wrong, I'm sure it's something I can cope with. And that's the other thing that adventure teaches you, is definitely if you risk failing, and if you fail on adventures, there's always going to be failures along the way, you learn to get up, dust yourself off and carry on. And once you know you can do that, it makes you bolder. I see this especially with kids and the modern world that we've created. It's really, as a new mum, my little boy's 4 now, so not that new mum, I suppose, but it's terrifying. All you want to do is protect them. But also, I'm very, very aware that if I don't allow him to make mistakes for himself and do things for himself, he'll never become independent. You know, my job is to keep him safe, number one, and my second job is to prepare him to be an adult. And so those things have really helped me. But the idea of coping mechanisms, building coping mechanisms, is what resilience is all about, really. If you know, to bounce back, you need to know how to do that. You need to be confident that you can do that. You'll try something in the first place. And of course, you either go one way or the other, I think. We were talking about getting into routines and patterns of doing things. You either get into a pattern of building yourself braver and stronger, or you can get into a pattern of going down a route where you're going to limit yourself.
Right.
And we all do it. It's human nature, but it's about pulling yourself out of that because bad things happen in life. Trauma and loss and difficulties happen. But, you know, obviously having resilience means that you can cope with that and hopefully pull yourself back onto a positive road.
And each of those experiences, each of those traumas or experiences where you've failed at something, and I don't like using the word failure, but, you know, if something hasn't gone the way you had expected it to, they all add to our tapestry of resilience, don't they? I've always described resilience to students as being like a tapestry, and in each experience is another skein of thread, a colourful thread being added to it. And it's that tapestry starts off really floppy, and then over time it just gets stronger and stronger because you're constantly adding more experiences, more threads to it, until, you know, there's no chance that it's going to wear or break. You know, it's not going to give at the slightest moment. And building that resilience is so important.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. But what I would say is, the only thing I'd say differently is that failure, we shouldn't think of failure as such a bad word.
No.
Failures along the way are our best lessons in learning. And if you look at anyone who's really successful, they will all have failed. And I think the message should be along the, especially to young people, because we make them so fearful, our society, is that it's okay to fail. Don't live cautiously, live boldly, fail, and then learn. Because when I failed, I've learned the quickest. Whereas if I've been overcautious, well, you never really get anywhere, do you? You just stagnate and stay in your own little prison, which I have done as well. But I don't want to live like that. Failing is okay. Obviously, you want to stay alive and stuff. There's catastrophic failures. So you need to be sensible, but failing is not the end. Failing is a step.
I love the fact that you have corrected me on the word failure, because for so long, because I was working in a grammar school where, the girls in that school just absolutely feared failure. And so we were basically, trying to use different words other than failure all the time. And so, yes, I have just learned over the years that failure is a negative word. And that is what all of us seem to have taken on about the word failure. So thank you. Yes, failure actually can be used in a positive way. And get used to it. Go out and fail and benefit from it as a result.
Fail fast. I think that's something I've heard from maybe business people or something.
Oh, I love it. So if adversity and risk and failure is good for us, then how do we encourage change? How do we affect that change? What can we do going forward to make sure that happens, not just for us, but for our families, for society? Where can we take that in the small picture, but also in the bigger picture?
Well, that's the hard bit, isn't it? I think that's partly why I wrote the book, because I wanted there to be a clear argument, so that if you understand that, if you feel that you believe that, then you will live differently, and you'll make more time for not just adventures, but also allow yourself failures and be bolder with all sorts of things. But I think the next step is then to try to talk to friends, family, children about that, and try to help them to see things differently. But on a bigger scale, on a kind of public policy, social scale, it's really hard. The Adventure Mind conference that we mentioned earlier, the reason I run that is because of exactly trying to answer that question. It's like, how can we affect change? We've got the data, we've got the will, we've got good people here. What can we do to make some things change? And I think there's so many opportunities. It's just trying to pick which ones are going to be most impactful. I think in schools, for example, we need adventure in schools, but we also need along with adventure comes different attitudes, like we were talking about failure. Also, within our healthcare, we need to add things like, rather than giving out pills, and I understand that antidepressants and various sorts of these drugs that are used for mental health, some of them are absolutely essential. But I think there's a pretty much, I'm not the only one who thinks that maybe they're being given out too quickly and too readily, and that we should be looking at other options like green therapy, adventure therapy, more social opportunities, because a lot of our mental health, I think, in our country is not down to people's biology, but it's actually down to the fact that we've changed the way that we live, and the way that we live is making us ill, and none of us can avoid it. It's everywhere, the stress, the different, the pressures and so on.
It's a toxic environment that we live in, and I don't mean physical necessarily, but yes, the social world can really pull us down, can't it? And because we're just caught up so much with being busy, working, social media. And social media can be positive, but it can, if we're caught up with it in the wrong way, it can actually have a negative effect, because we're just not going out, we're not socializing, we're not doing things that benefit our mental health and our physical well-being.
Yes. And so all of these things have gone, I don't know. I mean, it's a really interesting question as to why have we got to this place. I think we could talk for hours about that.
Yeah. But that's one for another day, maybe.
Yeah. But we are in this place. And how do we approach life differently? How do we try and help our friends and families, especially ones who are struggling, to see things, to have a different approach? That's why I love positive psychology. And a lot of the book is about positive psychology,
Yeah.
because it's about taking on, what can you do to enhance your mental health and your well-being and to flourish and live a good life.
Really does shine through in the book. I mean, you absolutely, without a doubt, you can see that it's very positive throughout, and gives lots of practical hints and tips and advice on how to take that forward in your own life and for your family. I really got that.
Yes, but how do we get things to change on a society level? Yeah, well, I'm still working on that. I would love to see more adventure in schools, more adventure in healthcare and social prescribing and so on, but also everything from urban planning. We should shut off streets to cars. We've allowed the car to become king. Allow kids to play in the street again, and imagine the street parties you could have and get to know your neighbours again. And I don't know, there's so much to say, there's so much that can be done, but I think it's just, we need a different attitude. We need middle-aged women running the
yes, big up middle-aged women. We've got this. Oh, brilliant.
Well, look at Jacinda over in New Zealand. She was juggling a baby and running New Zealand, and she was fantastic. I mean, I don't know, of all the world leaders, she did pretty well. Yeah,
amazing. So, Belinda, this is the question that I ask every guest when they come onto the podcast. Is there a HeadRightOut moment that you can recall, something where you stepped out of your comfort zone and benefited as a result, something that you didn't think you were capable of perhaps previously and really feared it, but you did it and then came away with a positive effect, a positive impact? It's a HeadRightOut moment.
Yes, well, that's why I do adventures. They give me HeadRightOut moments all the time.
Yay.
But I think the most powerful one was the first time, because that's when you discover that magic. And for me, it was going to Africa when I was 18. I had a difficult childhood. The latter part of my childhood, I suffered from some violence episodes in my life I had very low self-esteem, basically. And Duke of Edinburgh Award got me out on some adventures in Britain when I was about 16, and that gave me a whole new hope for my future. And then that followed by going off to Africa afterwards when I left school, and I came back a completely different person. And although I had still a lot to learn and a lot of confidence to build, my view changed from a road, I think, that was taking me where I didn't want to go and where I felt I should go. And instead I stepped onto a road that was going to be my road. And I was still lacking confidence in lots of ways, and I still had lots of growing to do, but I stepped onto my own road for the first time. And that was because, I'd taken that head first out.
HeadRightOut moment. Yeah. What a poignant moment that was as well. And it's that key pivotal time in your life again, isn't it, where you're transitioning from from teenager into adult.
It's so important at that time of life. And a lot of mental health problems arise around the age of 14. And your whole biology is going nuts, obviously. Thank goodness I was lucky enough to discover that then. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe I would have discovered it later, but I was very lucky to discover it then.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much there, but we're running out of time, Belinda, but thank you so much. This is it's been so exciting. So the Adventure Mind Conference, it happened last year, 2020. I was there, and I've been eagerly awaiting the next conference. Can you tell us a little bit more about when you think that might be taking place?
Well, because of COVID, we've had all sorts of delays and cancellations and so on and so forth. I'm very much hoping it will be happening in April, and by the time this fabulous podcast comes out, I'm sure it should hopefully be out and should all be announced. Brilliant. So within the next few days, I hope to be able to announce it again.
Okay, fabulous. And we obviously want people to go out and buy your book. I mean, I cannot recommend it enough. I think it needs to be a staple in every school library. That's for certain, but also for families, for young families, so that, to encourage them to start thinking about, the choice of language and the way they're going to bring up their children. So where can people go and buy your book?
So yes, Adventure Revolution, you can buy it at all major booksellers. So both online and also in all the lovely bookshops. It's good to support our bookshops. So there are signed copies at the moment in Stanford's bookshop in Bristol and London. Yeah, and you could also contact me if you wanted to have a signed copy or wanted any more information. Do get in touch.
Brilliant. And where can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you, Belinda?
Through Explorers Connect, and also I do a little bit of social media at the moment. I'm not massive social media, but you can contact me through Explorer Belinda and Explorers Connect. So Explorer Belinda and Explorers Connect on social media, belindakirk.com and also explorersconnect.com.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Well, Belinda, this has been an absolute joy. I have been looking forward to this for so long. I'm so pleased that I plucked up the courage to contact you in the end. And yeah, I mean, I have learned so much from you over the years of listening to you speak, and the benefit of the Adventure Mind Conference, reading your book, and now talking to you again. We've talked a couple of times in person, but yeah, this has been really in depth, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming on Head Right Out.
No, well, thank you, Zoe. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thanks for reading my book.
Yay! I'll be reading it again, definitely.
Oh, bless you. Well, have a lovely Christmas and hopefully catch up with you at Adventure Mind. Thanks, Zoe.
Well, there are some major important messages in there. I cannot begin to tell you how much Adventure Mind and the Adventure Revolution book has inspired me. I've been following Belinda for quite a number of years now, and the work she is doing is so important. And I truly hope that there will be someone one day in a position of power who can help guide the message of the positive impact of adventure on our health and well-being to the policymakers themselves, to the schools, and out there to the general public. Heck, it needs to be a public health campaign or something, doesn't it? We need an adventure revolution, and well done to Belinda for flying that flag, for carrying that standard for so long. She has got so much wisdom, so much expertise in this area. Who better than to take this revolution forward? Now, my favourite testimonial about the book, I just wanted to share with you because I think that sums up what Adventure Revolution is about, and really the message that Belinda has been portraying to us today. The perfect post-pandemic handbook for anyone wanting help to revitalise their life, increase their confidence, and surprise themselves. Belinda Kirk makes clear that purposeful adventure in the 21st century can be for us all. Everyone who wants to should be enabled and encouraged to access and benefit from the genuinely life-defining experiences, the powerful magic that can happen on even the smallest adventure. Belinda Kirk is a wise champion, and Adventure Revolution is a great companion to help on that journey. And that was written by Honor Wilson Fletcher, MBE, the CEO of the British Exploring Society. Okay, so we have our first Head Right Out moment to share of season 2. And as I spoke about them earlier, this is the whole reason that I share Head Right Out moments, is to encourage other people to step out of their comfort zone, to understand the benefit of pushing ourselves. Okay, this week's Head Right Out moment has been sent in by an old friend of mine from school, and her name is Karen Wood. I think you're going to like this one, particularly the people that enjoy and appreciate cold water swimming and open water swimming. This is called cold water bobbing. As a migraine sufferer for many, many years, and perimenopause making them more unpredictable, I've been changing my lifestyle to try and reduce the number of attacks I get. I've thought about what I put in my body, visited a food allergy therapist, and on advice have cut down on caffeine, changed to a dairy-free diet, and eliminated garlic, malt vinegar, and grapes. Unfortunately, that also includes wine. I also thought about what I put on my body, and I've switched to a skincare and cosmetic range called Tropic, which is vegan, contains completely natural ingredients, and is a double carbon neutral company. I love the products so much, I even became an independent Tropic ambassador. I also started exercise classes from home. I can't overly exert myself as this brings on a migraine, so I choose the online classes I do carefully and only do the cardio ones on very clear days. I then read that cold water therapy is great for migraines, so on a day off in October, my husband Steve suggested we take a day trip to Sidmouth, and if I wanted, I could get in the sea. I think he expected me to balk at the idea, but I jumped at it. Then I remembered I'd have to get my body out in public, which is why I rarely even go swimming in the local pool and why I like the online workout sessions. Since I hit my 40s, my body confidence has taken a massive dip. However, I thought, this is away from my home, so I should just go for it. Now, this may not seem like a big adventure to some, but it was completely out of my comfort zone. Nevertheless, I was determined to do it, as I wanted to try it to see if cold water swimming was something I could possibly then do on a regular basis. On the day, there was no question of backing out. I'd completely psyched myself up to do it, and I knew my husband was rooting for me to get in the sea. I hadn't wanted to buy a wetsuit for what may have been a one-off, so I was wearing a two-piece swimsuit for easy on-beach changing. Bearing my body on the beach was difficult for me. As I said, I've not been body confident in the last few years, so the walk down to where the waves were lapping against the sand was a little self-conscious in my navy and white striped bikini. The sea was cold, but it wasn't as cold as I thought it would be, although it was very rough, which explained the amount of wetsuit-clad surfers in the waves. One surfer walked past me and shouted, "You're brave!" And I felt it. I strode in and plunged myself under. It was absolutely exhilarating, and the feel of the cold water on my skin was just so uplifting. The waves were crashing against me and over me, and the cold on my head was so soothing. I tried to swim while staying in my depth, but the waves were huge. I stayed in for a while, but was mainly doing more bobbing than swimming. During my walk back up the beach, I had no thoughts about my body or does my bum look big. I was just filled with joy and gratitude. It had surprisingly helped with my body image issues, as I realized it doesn't matter what shape or size I am or what wobbly bits I might have. My body is here to help me complete these sort of activities and enjoy life, not shy away from it. I then sat, wrapped in a towel, on a rock with my husband and the dog, drinking a cuppa, watching the waves and the surfers for ages, just feeling totally at peace. It was the best day out I had in 2021, and I'll definitely be doing more cold water swimming or bobbing. Another thought was that I should probably invest in a wetsuit, especially after one rather large wave almost deprived me of my bikini bottoms. Oh, Karen, that is exactly the sort of Head Right Out moment message that I want people to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that. There are 2 photographs with her coming back out of the swim, looking totally and utterly chuffed with herself, arms in the air and those crashing waves behind her. Okay, so if you want to follow Karen, she is tropic_with_Karen W on Instagram, and on Facebook, she is Karen's Tropic Lounge. Karen Wood, thank you so much for sending that in. And if anybody else has a Head Right Out moment that they would like me to share on the podcast, please email me, zoe@headrightout.com, or message me on any of the socials, and we'll get something together. Okay, so the next episodes to come out, we have a solo episode to come out from me, a Solopisode, and we have Abhejali Bernardova from the Czech Republic. She is a swimmer and a runner, and when I say swimmer, I mean like mega swimmer. She's like an ultra swimmer, and we're going to be chatting to Siobhan Daniels, who is all about pro-aging, and she is living her life exceptionally alternatively at the moment, which I'm all for. As you know, I'm living on a boat too, so we'll hear more about Siobhan's story. And I also have a conversation lined up with Jo Bradshaw. She's a friend of mine, and I've been in touch with Jo now for maybe 5-6 years, since actually going to hear her speak at Cotswold Outdoor in Brecon. And I travelled all the way up from Poole to go and hear her talk in Brecon. That was before I was living in Abergavenny. But so Jo is a mountaineer, but she wasn't always a mountaineer. So there are some important messages that Jo will be sharing with us there as well. So mountains and menopause. There's been a delay on the Out episodes, as I had totally underestimated how long they would take to edit. Rookie error, I know, but I've learnt lots about recording outside, and also lots about the fact that if I keep recording for hours and hours and hours, it means I've got hours and hours and hours of content to edit, which is what's happened. So we've got at least 2, possibly even 3 Out episodes to come out. There's lots of outs in that. Never mind. But yes, they are still a work in progress. Let's call them that. And as a lot of you will know, I took the 6 weeks between seasons because I had a lot of personal things going on as well myself. So moving to a new boat, and I became a grandmother, and other family things going on. So it was important for me during this time to take that time to be present for family and for myself and for Mike. I hope you found this a positive and inspiring episode. Please hit follow on your podcast app, wherever you listen to Head Right Out. And if you get a moment, please just help me spread the love and the message even more by rating and reviewing, because that helps us reach more people. Okay, that's it for today. My call to action for you is to send me in your own Head Right Out moment. I'm looking for more to add to the episodes as we progress. And to B, hit follow and go help me spread the love by rating and reviewing the podcast. I want to really grow this show, and I can't do that without you. I've had some amazing feedback already, and we've only had 1 season, 10 episodes. It's been incredible. But let's get the Head Right Out message out there even more, and the Adventure Revolution message too. Get out there, do stuff that scares you, Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Head right out hugs to you all. Mwah.